Hi, it's Mimi Chen from 88.5 FM here in Los Angeles. And Keith Andrews is somebody that you have to check out because he's actually a great interviewer.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith Andrew, and this is episode 535. Today on the show, we have the beautiful and talented MImi Chen. I just want to say thank you for being a guest on my talk show.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
No, the honor is all mine. For people who want to know what my talk show is about, the whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities. To never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. It's to prove to them you can stand out to something. So hashtag break the labels. With that being said, a half hour, 33 minutes of your time. Say anything you want, talk about anything you want. I have no cards up on my sleeves, even though the shirt's kind of small. But that's just me. But, don't mind me. I'm a character myself. But you can say anything you want, talk about anything you want, and it's just a normal conversation. You're making a new friend out of it.
Sure. Your whole speech is just very inspiring. I think everybody has a certain amount of strengths and weaknesses in their whole composite. So, you just have to make the best of whatever you have. And I think it's great that, you're pursuing your passion.
No, absolutely. First, I'm going to ask you some easy questions, then we can go to the hard-hitting ones. You can ask me anything. And the first one I was going to ask you, start off with the easy ones, is when you were in high school and college, were you a study nerd or a party animal?
Wow. I'm not even sure I remember those years. No, I'm just kidding. I think I was part study animal and part, party nerd. So I think the thing is, I was lucky enough to be accepted at a really great school for college. And there was high academic standards expected of people who attended that kind of school. Yes, it was an Ivy League, and you tend to really study because the competition is very hard and very high at those kind of schools.
Right. Especially
if you want to, have a good GPA. However, I did encounter some classmates who didn't really seem to care about a GPA. So they were heavy on the party side, and sometimes I would be drawn into their circuit. But I think that was all reserved for the weekend. So, if I partied, it was mostly on a Saturday night. That was about it. But I think it's kind of normal. If you're a young person, you want to go out and have fun with your friends. So I think that's a healthy way to deal with all the academic pressures in life of being a student. So, that's what people do. I think I was actually somewhat boringly normal.
I feel the same way.
I don't think I was particularly super academic or a super party person. So that's pretty much the whole thing.
What about any sports? Were you athletic? Did you do any sports?
Yeah, I was terribly unathletic. I was I was kind of pudgy in high school. So when I got to college, I made a friend, one of my best friends today, who was a dancer. And she gave me my first dance lesson, and I was just so enchanted with dancing that, my school had one of those optional classes where you can enroll in dancing, and that became my passion for a long time. I would take, as many dance classes as I could. I actually think because when you start so late in life, you can't say that you're good at it. But I was decent. I mean, I I managed to like get through classes. I never did anything, even on a professional amateur level. It was just going to classes and enjoying myself. So I guess there's a certain amount of athleticism when you come to dance classes.
No, I hear you. What about, a lot of people make fun of me for this, and I'm a loser. But did you ever get the chance to do one of those human pyramids, or are you not into the human pyramid stuff?
Those always make me crack up. I mean, people who pile on top of each other. That's a pretty impressive thing to do. I was never invited to participate in one of those things, so I think if I do, I'd prefer to be the person on the top, right? Not sure I have the strength to shoulder other people.
Would you ever be interested in doing one?
Yeah, I think that would be funny and silly, I'm all for silliness. Anything to have a good laugh, right?
Hey, you live only once,
Yep, exactly. And I never thought of having that on my bucket list of things to do, but we can always add it.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah, why? Is this something that you do? You do like pyramids or something?
Well, I love that stuff. I always wanted to do one since I was 4, but
Really?
I was always told, it was stupid, it's pointless, it's weird. No one does that, only losers do that, so I never found the right group of people. So I'm always looking.
Yeah, people are horrible. I hate hearing stuff like that. It kills me that people are so mean to other people, especially, younger people. Kids are especially vicious. And, you just have to realize that they're horrible people and they don't deserve to have friends. At some point in my life, I just decided, no more mean asshole peoples in my life. So I know what you mean.
No,
I think
agree.
when I was like in kindergarten, I went to school in New Jersey, and the kids were mostly white kids, and they didn't understand, like, oh my gosh, there's this Asian person. So they walked around like very loudly going, Mom, what's wrong with her face? Her eyes are so weird, and you feel like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me, And I was tormented a little bit when I was a kid, so I can totally relate to the kind of horrible torment people must have put you through. I mean, that's terrible. People like that, they should be ashamed of themselves. And I'm sure some of them are now today, Because, you grow up and you realize that, what was I saying,
I think so. Don't get me wrong, I'm not like for beatings, but I mean, let me ask you this one. Do you think you should discipline your kids?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You need to, like, sit down and talk with them. I mean, I was never into the, physical punishment. I don't think physical punishment works with kids, but you certainly need to talk to them and explain to them what they're doing wrong, I mean, even today, my kids are both like in their 20s now, but we sit down and we talk to each other, and sometimes I learn from them. It's a great thing to see, my kids being aware of how life is and how words can impact other people. So I think it's great,
Yeah, it's all about being respectful. I'm not for beatings, but if your kid does something wrong, like that's like an open backhand or you spank them. Because if there's a quote I saw says if you let your kids run all over you, then you're giving them the impression it's okay to do that. And all they gotta do is be unemployed for the rest of their lives. So it's always good to teach them, if you get out of hand. I'm not saying giving them like a stone cold beating or anything. I just mean like, just like spanking. Are you for or against the spanking?
Oh, absolutely not. We shouldn't spank kids. That's terrible. Kids are like, you know, um, I like to. I mean, it's a weird comparison, but they're like dogs. Dogs. If you punish dogs and you hit them, they only know that you're hitting them and they want to bite back. And I
Right.
think that's the same with kids. It's like, why are you doing this? They don't understand. Like, you might be angry about something, and you know, you should sit down and maybe take a second to calm down and then explain to them, what's going on. Although I admit I was sometimes a terrible parent. I would get angry and start yelling at the top of my lungs. That's now in retrospect, I know that's not a good thing to do to kids either. But you learn, but luckily I think my kids, they seem to be okay. They don't seem to have too much trauma as adults.
That's true.
At least I hope so.
Well, like I was saying, I'm not like saying beat your kid to a bloody pulp. I just mean like discipline them. That's why I'm trying to find out without sounding like an asshole. I mean like if you do something wrong, just spank them on the butt once and say don't do that, or you just do that and they say don't do that. I'm not saying okay, it's time for an ass whooping. I'm not saying like that.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. If you couch it in those terms, like it's a little, wake up or pay attention to me kind of swat, that's probably not as horrible.
Right.
I did talk to a friend of mine once, and she said she was in a store and her kid said something, and she kind of like good-naturedly gave her a little, bang on the head. Nothing, strong, just like, hey, boom.
Yeah.
But I guess someone saw that and called child services on her, and I thought, well, that's actually a little extreme. I mean, that would be, something if she was wailing on her kid,
Yeah.
but I know her, and she doesn't do that. It was just like, hey, pay attention, boom. And, sometimes people do that, but it's not to hurt the kid. It's just to kind of like wake up, pay attention kind of thing.
And be respectful.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I do that with people in general. You kind of like, hey, what are you doing? Bam.
Now, the next question I was going to ask you about got me very interested. It's you are a current or former radio DJ?
Well, I've been DJing for several decades now. I mean, I was one of the lucky ones. I started when I was about a teenager, 17 years old. I was, in my college, they had a college radio station. So I went down there and I was encouraged by a friend to like join the club, so to speak. And while I was on the air there, it was a fairly significant, college station in terms of range, and the kind of music we played was, very free form. So people would call and I'd answer the phone. And one time, one of the local DJs from a top 40 station called me, and he was actually wanting to get more laid back on the air. So we kind of traded skills. Like he taught me to be more top 40, and I was teaching him to be more laid back. And from there, he also taught me like how to apply to get a job in radio. And I sent out tapes, not really thinking, I'm just a kid. And it was crazy. People like actually called me and hired me. So it's like, wow, I got a job. And from there, it actually turned into a career. I mean, the great thing about radio is you're literally on for, 4 hours a day. So after you finish work, you have like plenty of time to do other things in the day. I mean, it's been a great ride for me. I will say, I was lucky to be full-time for quite a bit, but right now I'm just part-time. I work at 88.5 in Los Angeles, which is a station that likes to break new music, so it's really nice to be at a station that's on the cutting edge. But I took a show that I've developed at another station, which was 100.3 The Sound. And the sound was very sad because the sound was sold. So everybody was let go from that radio station. But I took that show that I developed at the Sound, which is called Peace, Love, and Sunday Mornings, and now I'm at 88.5 doing Peace, Love, and Sundays, which tends to be more of a nostalgia show, more of a vibe, kind of hippie vibe. So it's a little different than, the cutting edge music that the rest of the station plays, but they seem to enjoy it. It's nice to have that variety.
Well, I do have a couple ideas for you off the air, if you don't mind. But
sure.
The first one I was going to ask you is, can you give us an example? You mentioned some of the ideas you were going back and forth about how you were teaching the guy to be laid back. He was teaching you the 40s. Can you give us an example of what you mean by that?
Oh, well, the top 40 format is you talk over the front of the music. So, say, at that point, something top 40. Wow, I might be dating myself. Let me find a good top 40 song.
So, like, for example,
something like a Michael Jackson song. It's like, here, everybody, we got the latest from Michael Jackson on WPST, and this is Beat It. So you would be talking very fast.
Right.
Whereas on FM radio, the delivery is a little bit more conversational. So you'd be saying, well, now we've got the latest here from Genesis, which I'd like to play for you on 100.3 The Sound. And I, when it comes to those kind of formats, I enjoy it because it's pretty much like the way I'm talking to you now.
Right.
Top 40, Boss Radio. Those kind of hits formats. It was very fast, up-tempo kind of an attitude. And like you live in New York, right?
Yes.
So do you get the New York City stations?
Some of them. I listen to... Well, the first thing I do want to ask you, I didn't mean to interrupt, I apologize.
No.
Is I tried doing that for my talk show. When I was in high school, I'd be like, I would play, I don't know, for an example, looking for a good song. I used to want to just use Michael Jackson, The Thriller. And I would talk in the beginning over the song, and then I would jump into it. And the guy I used to, basically because I was a high school program, he used to call in and like, knock it off! You're not supposed to do that. Either shut up and talk or play the music, but you can't do both.
Yeah, see, that's the difference is the formats where, they're high energy and up-tempo. They talk over the intro of songs all the time. But you're right. There's a lot of people who get annoyed by that. It's like, hey, you're not respecting the music. Shut up. So that was what the FM radio stations, their attitude was, okay, let's not do, too much talking over the music. Let's just, talk and then start the music. So there's a little bit more, awareness that, okay, a lot of people just want to listen to music and not too much yapping, really.
Yeah, I agree. And to answer your second part, some of the radio stations I listen to, and what I listen to is my dad, I like WPDH, The Wolf, 880. It's funny, it's... I don't know if you ever heard 880. It's like, it's now 8 o'clock out. Dun, 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 da, da, da. It's like, I remember that because we used to visit my grandparents, either in Long Island or Queens, and on the way back or going on the road trip, it used to do it in the time. It's like, oh, it's now 12 o'clock, and it used to do that little jingle. It's kind of comforting. It never changed over the years, so I always like that, and it's like kind of like a nostalgia thing. So
yeah, absolutely. I think people love to have, something they can grab onto their life that doesn't seem to change, that's always there. It's like a little comforting aspect of life. Whoa, hey, it's still there. And as we get older, we see so much change around us. You walk around or you visit For me, it's just visiting my parents in New Jersey, and every time I go back, it's like, what happened? This town has changed so much, and it's a little sad because, you know, what happened to my favorite 5 and dime store when I was a kid, which was a store called Woolworth. And I remember going in there, and I guess the comparable store would be Dollar Store now.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, we used to be able to buy things like 20 cents. Now it's like 20 cents. What is 20 cents going to get you? Well, like 1/5 of a gum pack. Or maybe not even that much. It's a sad thing.
Yeah, I agree. In some of the other stations, it's, let's say, the Wolf, 880, 1010 wins, 100.7, 100.3, and there's a couple other ones. And I can relate to, okay, I know I'm in my 30s, I know you're older than me, but I can relate, you know, look at what happened to the town. You know, look at, for an example, I don't know if you ever been to Woodbury Commons.
No, I don't think so.
That's more near West Point in the Catskills.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like from, you know, Monroe, New York. And it's like when my parents moved here from 1987, it was a small town. And now look, you know, 31 years later, yeah, it's getting big, but it's, you know, we're in the midst of a lot of debates. I don't know if you guys heard of it, actually. It's the Hasidics are actually taking over. You know, they're knocking woods down and they want to expand. So there's now they're tapping into New York City water, and New York City says you can't do that. That water is only for New York City residents. Well, they're not listening, and now they're tapping into it. So basically, I'm just waiting for the shit to hit the fan. It's got to break out into a civil war. But yeah, it happened. You have no control over it. All that matters is, to me, it's I have a roof over my head. I have my family. I have my health, and I'm doing what I love. And
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you actually sound like you have a really great life. So, you know, a lot of people, you know, what's happened with Facebook is it's a very interesting thing to be, you know, suddenly meet people not like, I mean, not just like you, but also people from all walks of life. And I just read the other day one of my Facebook friends who I have to admit that it's just somebody I friended out of the blue, but then he was writing, it's like, oh, I won't be on Facebook anymore after Thursday because I'll be homeless. And I felt, oh my gosh, that's a terrible thing, you know, that one of the worst things in life is just to become homeless. So people were very kind and trying to offer him suggestions, you know, finding shelter. And I do know that in Los Angeles there's a service called 211 which tries to help homeless people. So I told him to, you know, try calling that, although, gosh, I think they're so overwhelmed.
Right.
That it's a really tough thing. So
well, you bring up a good point. I do want to talk about that in a minute, but we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about where we left off.
Vanessa Lina. Asian Lalo. I'm Cynthia Bastinet. I'm Sonia Fisher. This is Shane Smith.
My name is Alexandra Bowie. My name is Amelia Clover.
Hi, I'm Amy Linden.
Hi, I'm Anita Nicole Brown.
Meg Green.
Hi, my name is Asata Caldwell. Hi, everybody, I'm Brooke.
Hi, I'm Brinford. Hi, I'm Casey Dunn.
Hi, it's Cassandra Kavinsky.
Hi, I'm Christina Briza.
I'm Cindy Hogan. I'm Courtney Sinello.
Hi, I'm Daisy.
My name is Deborah Jane East.
Hi, my name is Dinah Marcia.
Everyone, I'm Victoria London.
Hi, I'm Heather Crona.
Hi, I'm Heather Callahan Stevens.
Hi, I'm J. Nicole Ralph.
My name is Jamie Petrell.
My name is Turi.
My name is Julia Brankovich.
Kathleen Wills.
Kimberly Amato.
Hi, my name is Laura Putnam.
Hi, I'm Laura Chapanis.
Hi everyone, I'm Melissa Damas.
This is Michelle Mupo, aka Fuchsia.
I'm Rachel Rivera.
Hi, my name is Sarah Joy Mount.
Hi, I'm Susan Brender.
Hi everyone, this is Venus Leone.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Tana.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Herrera, and I was just on the Keith Andrew Network. It was tons of fun. We used up all our time and then some. I really recommend this show, and try to be a guest on Keith's show. It was super fun.
Gentlemen, I am your host, Keith Andrew, the one and only. That's a bad shot, I don't have a fat neck. I am the one and only Keith Andrew, and this is episode 535. I'm here with the talented and beautiful MImi Chen. I just want to say thank you for sticking with us. What's the last? Oh, go ahead.
No, it's great. I've been enjoying our conversation.
No, likewise. You're supporting a good cause, making a new friend out of it. I know I don't shut up sometimes. That's why I'm kind of like a good talk show host.
Well, I think it's great. I think you do a great job at it, And the fact that you've been doing it for 5 years, I think your experience definitely shows. So I'm quite impressed.
I appreciate it. My brother says I remind him of a white machine, white noise. Because every time I say something, he says, all I hear from you is... It's like, I tune him out after a while.
Your brother is a clown.
Yeah, I use him for an inspiration, but I know, I love him, but I don't know. He is what he is. I am... You're going to set me for who I am, or you got to make friends with the door. That's pretty much
Exactly. No, I mean, I think that's the same way we all treat our siblings. We all love them, and there's times when it's like, oy vey.
Now, I have 2 hard-hitting questions for you, then I will pass this show over to you to remain in time. Mm-hmm. The first question I was going to ask you is, we left off, we were talking about the homeless. Do you think it's the city and the state's job to help people first that are homeless, then help with the refugees? Because, I'm kind of torn on it, because it's like, refugees and illegal immigrants, they're welcome to be here, because that's what the country is made of, illegal immigrants. But you're looking at it as, should you help the homeless first? Because you have homeless veterans, you have homeless disabled people, you just have homeless in general, but you're like, yeah, come on in. But it's kind of like, it's like making a mess on the floor and saying, instead of cleaning it up, you just added more dirt onto it and saying, what's the worst can happen?
Well, I think the thing is, homelessness will always be there.
Yeah.
It's something unavoidable. And also refugees. It's a problem that every country has, people changing borders. And, it's a natural thing. People change states, too. I mean, you can't stop that. And for a lot of these refugees, they're actually leaving a horrible situation. What do you do if you're in that kind of predicament? Do you sit there and take the abuse with the idea that you might get killed any day? I mean, any sane person would go, I might get killed. This is horrible. I have to leave. I have to go somewhere. And for many people, the only option they have, because especially south of the border, where are you going to find a safe haven? There are very few safe havens for a lot of these people. Mexico itself, when you look at Mexico, wow, there's already warnings in place for American citizens. Don't go there, because there's been kidnappings and people killed, and you look at that and you think, what can you do to help these people? The only place they know, if they're close enough to America, they're going to try to come here, and it is not against the law for them to try to seek asylum.
Right.
And we have to understand that actually this country is quite large. There's quite a bit of uninhabited places and places that can use people. A lot of really tiny towns. I think people have this attitude that somehow we're overcrowded, and maybe we are in certain areas. We certainly are. Here in Los Angeles, we're increasing our population with a drought in place, and that's actually quite concerning to me. But we have to understand that these are problems that are always going to be there. We're going to have to deal with it. We can't bury our heads, or we can't shut them out. It's too large of a country to shut out borders.
Right.
And the other thing people have to realize is that the majority of people who come here and overstay their visas, they're actually flying in here. They're coming on visas, but then their visa lapses and they stay here. So the idea that, you've got these people, an influx of horrible refugees from other countries, that's just not true. It's just a problem, that we're going to have to deal with, and we need a great way. We need to figure out a way, some sort of method to deal with people like that, just like we have to deal with the overcrowding in prisons. And yes, it's going to require a great deal of money, but perhaps, instead of increasing our budget on defense spending, which is already 11 times that of the nearest country, maybe we could, divert some of those funds to helping people. I know that people were talking about Trump's military parade and said if you use that money for fixing the problem in Flint, perhaps we won't have people getting sick from the water there. So, priorities, people.
It's true. And I won't get started with Trump, but I do think, I know, he gets his head up his ass, but that's among other things. But with the last 2 minutes left of the show, I'm going to ask you real quick about social media, and then I will pass it to you. Social media, do you think social media can make you or break you? And do you have anything you want to ask me?
I was actually a little late on the social media bandwagon. I got on only because a friend of mine said, "Oh, I want to communicate with you via Facebook." And then I thought, "Oh, what a great tool. It's a great way to, keep in touch with your childhood friends." So I got very much into it. And then at work, we had a little Twitter competition. It's like, hey, let's see how many people we can get to follow us. And of course, I was very into competing against my fellow DJs, going, oh, I'm going to win. It was just a good-natured kind of, competition. And I learned early on, it's one of those, you follow me and I'll follow you. And so it was called the follow back method. So right. People, I would see them and I'd click on their friend list or whatever, or their follow list, and I'd go follow, and invariably you follow somebody and they would follow you back. I don't think it works as much nowadays, but that was my method for getting followers, and of course most of them are just interested in marketing themselves. I think, for some people, I think it's a great thing. Obviously a lot of these younger folks who have huge followings have learned to monetize it, and in our changing economic situation, I'm all the more in favor of however people can, make money and monetize something, then I'm all in favor of it. I see people trying to do that. My kids are trying to do that, and I'm just hoping that it will work for them. And, I'm trying to help you out in your endeavors to get a talk show, and I can see that you're actually pretty good at it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Now, wrapping up, was there anything you wanted to talk about? Anything you wanted to promote?
Gosh, I wish there was. Aside from my current radio show, you can tune me online at www.885fm.org, which is the radio station I work at. They stream online. I'm on Sundays, Pacific time, 1 to 3. So it's a 2-hour blip. If you don't tune it in, you miss it real quick. but I still have fun. That's the great thing about doing a music show. It's like, what a great thing to be paid and play music you love. I mean, it's what other job does that? So,
No,
I
absolutely.
still fun. Yeah. And that's, aside from pursuing a little bit of acting on the side, that's currently in my situation. Hopefully there'll be a radio station that'll pick me up, give me a little more work. So.
Well, I do have a couple ideas for you off the air. And who knows, maybe if you're interested, I could be a guest on your show, but hypothetically.
Well, that would be ideal, but unfortunately, it's a music show. They don't really have interviews. But, I'm sure at some point, you never know, I might go back into talk radio. And you would make a wonderful guest, I think.
I appreciate it. My last two questions for you, and I have a couple questions off the air, is when I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what was your first reaction and what made you say yes? And how do you feel now? And how can people follow you on social media? Are you on LinkedIn, Twitter, Stage 32?
I'm on all of the above, actually. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me. It's MImi Chen. I'm currently a board member of A Case for the Cure. I guess that's what's showing up on the searches. And my Facebook fan page is, if you do facebook.com, it's MImi Chen Fun. And then Twitter is Mimi_the Sound. I do know I'm on Instagram too, DJ Me. And so there's ways for people to follow me on social media. They probably will get regaled with photos of my dog a lot, but I found that people don't seem to mind that.
Actually, it's funny you should mention that. There's a lot of people have Instagrams where I may create one for my cat just for a hell of it, just to see how many followers he or she gets.
You definitely should. Cat photos are very popular.
And the last question is, when I first approached you, what made you say yes?
Oh, okay, that's right. That was a double-part question there. I usually try to be accommodating when people, reach out to me for interviews. Just because I don't consider myself like, big celebrity. However, I do know that the bigger celebrity types do get inundated, and they do have to be a little more selective, because otherwise they would be spending all their time with interviews. And I have to sympathize with that. So, whenever at a radio station, if we landed someone huge like an Elton John or somebody like that, there'd be like, woohoo! It's very tough. So, and I didn't know what to expect when you reached out to me, but now that I've experienced it, I'm real impressed, like I said. I think you do a great job.
I appreciate it. Now, I do have a couple questions for you off the air. About wrapping up your interview segment, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest, and I'm looking forward to part 2 down the road.
Well, you say you have a learning disability, but I'm not really seeing a lot of it. What?
I put a good mask on.
I guess you've managed to really work on whatever you feel your limitations are. But what is it that you feel that they've diagnosed you with?
Pretty much, I was diagnosed as, and we're going over time now. I was diagnosed as handicapped, mentally disturbed, mentally disconnected, retarded. I read and learn at a 5th grade level. I'm on the border or spectrum, whatever the hell you want to call it, of retardation. My family likes to tell me I'm socially awkward. I can't have a normal conversation, so that's why I talk a lot, and people usually like, "Shut up, Keith, take a breath." Or I sound like white noise.
I think you've surpassed whatever those labels have on you. I I don't feel like I'm talking to, someone who falls in those categories. I feel like you seem to be very intelligent to me. You're very conversive. You listen and you respond really well. And you seem to be very aware of all the trends, both politically and socially. So I really commend you for, working hard on that. I know it's tough.
You really want to see Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. When my nephew was little, when he was like 3, we all thought he had a problem. We all thought he was going to be extremely slow because he couldn't speak. He was having a speech problem, and they had to really work on. And then, he seemed to be slow, but he was not slow. He went on, and he went to a couple Ivy League schools, so I wouldn't call that a slow person. I think, people have different rates of development. That's all I think. And if you stop learning, then you stop learning, but you obviously have not stopped learning. So I think, that's a great thing.
No, I agree. And my biggest thing is I hesitate. A lot of people make fun of me for this. I learn hands-on. So you can't just throw me a book because I'm not really the best reader. So I was going to say, you want to see my disability kick in, throw me a test. Because I can read it, but it doesn't sink in. So I have to read it about 5-6 times for it to physically sink in. And I can say words, but if you say, I don't know, spell hippo, I have no idea how to spell that. I can say it, but I don't know how to spell, so, that's part of the disability. And it's just, I read and learn at a 5th grade level, so that's kind of falls into the category of being retarded. But the reason I'm so good at my talk shows, I'm doing it 24/7. You can tell my family, because they get tired of hearing about it. Like, I do it 24/7 every day for the past 5.5 years. This is what I want to do until I'm 6 feet under. I'm not saying that to be cute. I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm not saying that to get a rise or a reaction out of someone. I'm just saying, my dad made a joke to me yesterday and said, for an example, my brother, who has a disability too, says, I've been at my job for 12 years. Huh, that's really interesting. What about you, Keith? You had about 12 different jobs in a year. I'm like, that's not funny. Because as part of my disability, it's because I don't shut up. And I like to do things a certain way. And I do rub people the wrong way. That's one thing with me and my brother. My brother doesn't like about me because, okay, I rub people the wrong way intentionally. You get a reaction. But there's other times where I would just be myself and it's like, Keith, stop being an asshole. I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm being myself. It's because I don't have that set people skills or mannerisms that it's kind of like you having, on and off switch. I just go. I just do things. And a lot of people think I'm just doing it to get a reaction. It's kind of like there's no switch in between, if that makes any sense.
No, I don't know. I feel like, well, like I said, you have a gift of gab and you're using it very well. So there's a lot of different types of people in this universe. And there are actually people who are unable to communicate as well as you do. So, you surpass them in a certain way. And IQ is something that is very difficult to assess. Nowadays, they also have something called the EQ, which is an emotional quotient. And you might actually have a very high EQ there, I would say that, these people they rely too much on, testing or levels or what. I think, everybody is comprised of so many different aspects of person and personality. So that's a very difficult thing to gauge. It's so difficult to assess one person in many ways. So I think, whatever your passion is, it sounds like you're pursuing it and you're doing good at it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think, I think when a person takes something in life and they want to be a certain way, and if they work really hard at it, I think it can be achievable, and you're a good example of that.
I hope so. Now, I do have a couple questions for you off the air. But wrapping up, it's an honor and privilege having you as a show on the show, and I'm looking forward to part 2 down the road.
All right, thanks. Very nice talking to you.